The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ. Good morning. It's been a fun day yesterday, that's for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see what our discussion's about today. One of the things I think is interesting is the poor voter turnout yesterday. It was absolutely horrendous. All these people wanting to get together and let's vote, let's make a change. And all of a sudden we have one of the absolutely worst voter turnouts I've seen in a long time. And the weird part about it is, sorry to leave camera for a second, is that we had 17,165 people who went out and voted yesterday. And people are like, oh, well, that's pretty good. No, it's not. It's 34% of the people of the registered voters in Fall River. And you wonder why people just overlook Fall River and why they don't care, because the people don't care. And there's no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. And after the entire voter registration pool and everything else going on, because we had a little over 48,000 registered voters at the primary time, we now have 49,527 voters. And only 17,000 of them could get up off their backsides and go out and vote. Chip, don't you have a problem with that?
Oh, I have a big problem, obviously. You know, when you have almost 32,000 people registered to vote that didn't get up, and there was no excuse yesterday. It was a really nice day. It's a beautiful day for November. Very, very mild. No rain. No issues for getting around. You could, if you lived close enough, you could walk to the polls. And you know, what always bothers me is it's probably, you know, historically the people that do the least that complain the most. The fact is that I'm sure people will complain about their candidate not getting in, and if you ask them if they voted, they'll say no. Historically, it's something that we just can't get around. And I think if you look at these cities and these communities that are depressed economically, you find that there's a lot of apathy, a lot of the attitude that, oh, what can I do? Well, what you can do is actually put people in office who will work for you, not for special interests. Again, we see this manifested all the time. I hope this is not a harbinger of things to come on December 16th, because I don't know. You know, there's the old adage from Bonaparte that the only levers that move men are fear and self-interest. Well, you should fear that this administration is going to continue, and it is in your self-interest to get him out, because the fact is this city is on the verge of receivership. And you will not like what happens to this city in receivership, even though it will be a short stint, and then hopefully we'll be back on our feet. But the fact is that, you know, this is a travesty. You know, America cannot be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people if the people don't participate.
Well, the people in Fall River obviously are telling, you know, the people in the State House and in Government Center that they don't care. Now, if you don't care, then don't complain. You know, I've many times asked people, well, who did you vote for? And they go, oh, I didn't go out and vote. Well, you've got no place to bitch, bottom line. But, you know, we look at this and, you know, people are upset because Martha Coakley took a tank. Okay, Martha Coakley lost. She didn't lose by a lot, but she lost. She finally conceded her election. And they're all upset about it. Well, you know, Martha Coakley couldn't even take the time to come down to Fall River, except for the one time she was down here with, you know, Slick Willie. And she never got any ads. There was no ads from Martha Coakley, nothing. And here's where the Republicans actually did something right. They just stopped the bleeding. Okay, they may have upped by taking out ads and being down here. They probably upped their support by 10 or 15% of the vote. Now, it's not going to mean that the Republicans won, but they actually just stopped the bleeding a little bit. And that 10 or 15%, had it gone to Martha Coakley, would have made a huge difference, and possibly the fact that she would have been, the governor. But instead, like she did with the Senate race, she blew it out of the water. The woman doesn't have a clue. And you have to really ask yourself, are either of these parties ever going to smarten up and say, hey, what's wrong? And looking at another race, which was very important, the David Steinhoff-Carol Fiola race. And I have to say, I honestly thought David was going to do better in this. I didn't know if he was going to win, but I did think he was going to do better. And my question then becomes, how could you send out a flyer that you sent? And I'm going to leave the commentary on that to you, Chip, because you actually received it. But when you're in a blue state, you got to pretend to be blue, or at least purple, so you can get past it all.
Well, yeah, that's true. But to get back to the gubernatorial race first, obviously Martha Coakley and most Democratic candidates don't really care about the South Coast because historically they always win. But you're right. Baker did put a little time and a little effort into doing something, and he got a lot bigger vote total, I think, than people anticipated. Coakley won. She won comfortably, but I mean, it was not uncommon in the old days to see a Democratic candidate get 85% of the vote in this area. So, as you said, they did, they basically write off the South Coast, and you wonder why we get nothing down here. It's because they take us for granted. The Democratic candidates take us for granted, and they say, look, we don't care if we ignore them. No matter what we do to them, they're going to vote Democrat. And the Republican candidates say, well, we'll give them a little bit of interest, but we're never going to win down there. So let's just give them a little perfunctory kind of attention, and we might get a few more votes, and it might matter in the overall election, as it did with Charlie Baker. But now when we get to you're right, and now we get back to the state rep race where, there was an opportunity to change basically some of the attitudes in Boston. We had a state rep who has a very long history of being a political insider. And, this section of the state has been ignored for a very, very long time. And whether you liked it or not, you did have a choice. And one was to put somebody new up there, and if you didn't like what he did, get rid of him after one term, and maybe set some kind of precedent that if you don't work for the people, you don't get a job. But again, the cards were kind of stacked against David, CJ. I will say that because of this election and because of the strong support that many Democratic candidates had going to the polls, I think it was a big mistake for him to, one of his last flyers to put out, let's put a Republican up there for balance. Because it's not about Republican, Democrat. It's about your platform, about what you're going to do as a representative of the people. I've always said that labels are there to disenfranchise parts of voters because, like liberal, conservative, and moderate, the reality is that people are always liberal about what they want, conservative about what they have, and moderate about what they don't really care about. The fact is that these labels are just to try to get people in a box and disenfranchise a certain voter. I think it was not a good political strategy for his last thing to draw a demarcation and kind of say, I want to be identified. I think he should have gone as, I want to be identified as the man that goes to Boston to represent the best interest of the people and to do the job that I'm supposed to do. But as I said, a lot of Democrats went to the polls to support Coakley, to support the Democratic ticket, and so that put him in a box. But The other factor that a lot of people don't realize is what's happened to Fall River over the last 25 or 30 years. There was a time that no mayor would raise taxes the way Mayor Flanagan has, because he would be out of office. They would be attacking the polling places. They would be beating on the door before they opened to throw him out of office if he had the audacity to raise taxes 1 penny. Mayors used to shudder and do everything possible to streamline government and to do anything not to raise taxes. Those days are gone. And why are they gone? Because in those days, we probably had 60 or 70% of the population that owned property in Fall River. Today, that's down to 37%. So maybe the 37% who own property go there and vote to try to get people out who are breaking their backs with taxes and fees. But now we have that majority, the 32,000 that didn't show up, who just don't care. It's like, hey, it doesn't affect me. If the property owner get his backs broken, if businesses leave because they can't deal with the fees, the complexion of the city has changed. And the only way we're ever going to change it back is to realize and tell these people to realize that they do have an investment in this community. The services they get, the rent they pay. All these are affected when we have mismanagement of government. And if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem.
Well, that's the biggest problem we have in Fall River. It's not the politicians all the time. A lot of times it's the people. I mean, if you know you can commit illegal acts, if you know that you can screw, lie, and cheat your way to the top, and the people say, who cares? Nobody pays attention. I mean, what accountability is there? The accountability usually takes place at the ballot box. My biggest fear, though, is that the majority on December 16th may recall Will Flanagan, but the plurality or the minority may reelect him because of the way the ballot is set up. And this is where people have to understand. You can complain all you want that this mayor is no good, this mayor is, he's just raising your cost of living, it's not working. He's even selling you out because on his quote-unquote Amazon deal coming to Fall River, which again, Chip and I laugh about, is that there is no way to get better in Fall River any way you look at it. You have to say to yourself, if you're going to sell us out, Mr. Mayor, for $35,000 for a potential 1,000 people, and you're going to say to us, well, be grateful because there's at least a job that you're going to get paid $35,000 for, or is this just going to be another, smoke and mirror floor show where we're going to deal with this like we deal with the casino? We can't trust anything that we hear. And not only does that affect the 6th floor and the law department, it affects DCM, it affects water and sewer, it affects the city clerk, it affects every single department, including CDA. And we have to say to ourselves, can we exist in a community where the wants and needs of the community aren't met and the complaints of the community are ignored? And they can say yes, because as you said, the Democrats don't even bother with the South Coast, whether it be Fall River, New Bedford, Taunton, because guess what? We're all lemmings. We walk down the lobby, following line after line after each individual person doing the exact same thing over and over again. And when we get into the ballot box, we go D, 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 D. And, D may stand for Democrat for a lot of people, but stands for dunce for most of them, I'm telling you now, because you vote D and you get nothing. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people will go in and say, well, there's an R and I can't vote for Republican. Well, a lot of people can't vote for Republican, and I say if you're going in just to vote for the R, then you're a reject. So you're either a dunce or a reject. If you're looking at the person and you're saying, oh, this person stands for this, this, and this is what the person says, but they're a Republican, but I'm going to vote for them anyway, that's a different story. Or you just say, I don't care what party they are, I'm going to vote for that person. But that doesn't happen in Fall River, and the Democrats know it, and they will stand there. And that's the sad part about it. And that's what the mayor is standing on. The mayor is standing on the fact that, he doesn't have to worry about the election because guess what? They're going to vote for him because he is, and that's all these people know how to do, to go in and eat their chow mein sandwich and vote for the nitwit who gave them the chow mein sandwich. And that, they think that, oh, well, I voted for a good guy because he's a good guy. No, you didn't. You voted for an idiot. You voted for a moron. You voted for him because he gave you a chow mein sandwich or an ice cream social. Get real. Fall River needs to wake up. And a 34% attendance at the polls is not good. It's shameful. It's shameful. And Fall River has nothing to be proud of with that. When you start getting 85 and 90%, come talk to me. But there's no excuse why you can't get your ballot in. Because if you can't make it out of your house, get an absentee ballot and have it taken in. The appearance is just unacceptable.
Well, you're right, CJ. Obviously, all you have to do is look at affluent communities and look at the involvement, the community involvement. I believe Barrington, Rhode Island had 40 ballot questions. The ballot was, I think, there were 2 ballots, maybe 3. And there was an hour and a half wait to get into the polls, and they gave them 10 minutes to get through the entire 40 questions plus the election. But you saw the community involvement. I saw it on TV.
Yes.
And that's why Barrington gets what, they control their government because the people show up. And imagine 40 questions. That just goes to show how sensitive the politicians in Barrington are to the people, because they had 40 questions that were unique to the community of Barrington, which means that, hey, we're not going to do stuff like put in 22 windows without permission. We're not going to do stuff like get marble floors, and we're not going to promise things and distort the truth. The reality is, okay, let's start with Amazon, which, number one, is not guaranteed, regardless of what the mayor says. It's not a guarantee. It's a letter of intent, and they're going to go out to communities that can get the best deal. Will they get the best deal in Fall River? Maybe, because I know that the jobs that they're offering in a warehouse are paying $35, but the same warehouse jobs in Stoughton are paying $45 or $55. So it shows how much they value the fact that our workforce works cheap. And that, to me, is disgraceful, because if you work in a warehouse in Stoughton or a warehouse in Fall River, it's still the same work. But just goes to show how little they think of this community, because they say, hey, they're so hard up, they'll take any job for any amount of money. And the other factor is, how much is Amazon going to help the community outside of giving some jobs and leaving as soon as the TIF is up? Because the biggest impact any industry, because they're not going to hire all 1,000 people from Fall River because of qualifications, et cetera, experience. It's the taxes they pay. Like when casinos come in and they go, okay, we're going to give the city, this is how much the city's going to get in tax money. Amazon's looking for TIFs. They're looking for freebies. They're looking to come in and basically pay virtually no taxes if possible, or very little. So realistically, what kind of impact is Amazon going to have on the city of Fall River if it pays virtually no taxes? Yeah, it'll give us a few jobs, but how is that really a good thing if you have a company that will be here for, let's say they give them a 10-year TIF. You get somebody that works at Amazon for 10 years and they feel secure, they've begun to move their lives ahead. Maybe they've purchased a house because they say, hey, I got a job. And then Amazon goes, hey, TIF's up, we're gone. We're not going to pay we're not going to pay 100% of our taxes. Now you've got, again, disenfranchised workers like we had with Quaker Fabrics and so many other companies in Fall River that pulled their roots up and left as soon as the TIF was up. And I'm sure they'll never sign a TIF that requires them to pay taxes for at least half of that time. And so, I mean, let's be realistic. It's like Amazon is the new casino for Will Flanagan.
Oh, there's no question about that. And the thing is like you said, once the TIF is gone, they're gone. And we've seen that with other companies. We've seen it throughout the industrial park. We've had the window company that was making Silver Line windows, and they went to North Carolina because North Carolina gave them a better deal. Okay? And that's what happens. You go into a bidding war. And the problem that I have is that our politicians thought so little of us. More specifically, Mayor Flanagan and Ken Fiola thought so little of us. They said, you can get these cheap guys for 35 grand a year, tops. Everyone that works in the warehouse, give them $9 an hour, because that's what the minimum wage is going to be in January. And that's exactly what they did. They sold us for dirt money. And the thing is that when you look at Amazon's history, and there's plenty of videos on YouTube about it, they're nothing more than another Walmart. Go in, get it cheap, and run away. And I right now am working on a story on what Walmart received to locate or relocate their store in Fall River right where it's located, because I have a very good source that's providing me with documents. And when that story breaks, I'm telling you now, it's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be pleasant. But it's nothing that we're not surprised with, Yeah. But, we really have to say to ourselves, can we take this anymore? I mean, selling us cheap. I mean, next thing you know, all the jobs that have gone to, Guatemala and everywhere else to do for 1 cent a piece on piecework is going to come back to Fall River, because the politicians are going to say, yeah, you can do it, no problem. Pay them piecework, 1 cent a piece,
Yeah, and you're right, CJ. But the fact is, we're not minimizing some of the people. It's the old thing. That's what happened when we had mills, and the rich people had the mills. They worked everybody 14 hours a day, and then they had to buy from stores that the mills owned. So they basically got all their paycheck back. They lived in squalor, and they worked so long and hard that they didn't have any time to pay attention to what was going on around them. And unfortunately, in Fall River, it seems that's what's happened now. Most people are so busy trying to eke out an existence that they're not paying attention, and they don't listen, and they don't understand that the cure to that is to vote. Go and vote. The only way out of this mess is to get these people out of office. For example, listen to what they say. The mayor was on TV and did an interview about the recall, saying he's confident he's going to win because Fall River is a much better place now than when he took office. And crime is down, and this is a slice of green heaven or whatever. And
it's a piece of God's green earth.
A piece of God's green earth, okay, I stand corrected. And then let's look at the reality. Hey guys and girls out there, isn't this the same mayor that told a city councilor he should carry a gun because it's dangerous out there? And he goes on camera and says how crime is down, but he carries a gun. And he tells the city council to carry a gun.
Hey, we're the 4th most dangerous city in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, we were just voted the 4th most dangerous city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we were one of the 5 most poverty-stricken cities to get another grant from the feds because our unemployment and the problems are so high in this community. Yet, he's either delusionary or he's lying. Because, or he's bipolar, I guess. He could be bipolar, too. I guess the guy that told Councilor Correa to carry a gun isn't the same one that got in front of the camera. But the reality is, let's face it. This is political. This is lying, misrepresenting of facts, telling half-truths. This is the problem. And people buy this. People go, oh yeah, the city is it's much nicer. Drive around and lose your front end and all the potholes and look at the mess we have and look at the crime. I was watching The Most Wanted in Fall River on one of the access channels, and you're looking at the crimes these people look like. The Most Wanted. They're looked upon for assault and battery with intent to murder. And multiple assault and batteries, and it's like, wow, yeah, this you're right, man. Now I know why you carry a gun, but don't go on television and try to tell the people that crime is down, because crime statistics, like every other figure, can be manipulated, and they're manipulated very easily. If you want to show that crime's up because you want a grant. When you arrest a guy with 5 warrants, you have 5 separate charges. If you arrest a guy with 5 warrants out and you want to show crime is down, you make it 1 arrest on the 5 charges.
And Chip, what's really interesting is that when you listen to all this political pandering, it just it makes you sick. I mean, I get nauseated by it. But one of the things that makes me laugh is, I got into an argument yesterday with a reputable business owner and his wife, who I went to school with his wife, and I have a great deal of respect for both of them, that Carol Fiola is the best thing to happen since sliced cheese in Fall River. And, she's all against public housing, supposedly. Yet she has never once gone public on the State House floor and said, Fall River already has had enough. She says it in Fall River because she needs to pander to the people. So don't just listen to what they say, listen to what they actually do. Because I'll tell you now, they're not doing a whole heck of a lot for us. And I'm trying to get confirmation from Amazon that they are going to actually come. Or is this just a fishing expedition? Because I'll tell you right now, I think it's a fishing expedition, and I really think Moby Dick is going out to sea.
Well, as I said, even if it does come, it's not going to have the kind of significant impact that a heavy-duty taxpayer will have. The reality is that, Fall River historically, and what bothers me is that Fall River historically has always tried to discourage high-paying companies from coming here. I mean, when the power plants were coming here, Fall River didn't want any part of the power plants, I've been told. And when Polaroid came here, Fall River said, we don't want Polaroid. And they moved to a Sonnet, and ironically, we provided fire protection for them. So the city taxpayers were paying to protect a company that wasn't paying any taxes in Fall River. They were in a Sonnet. So, what they say and what they do, just as the salaries with Amazon, settling for low salaries to entice them in. Well, guess what? It shows an intent, as you said, CJ, on the company's part to cut and run as soon as all these incentives are gone. It's like, okay, we got cheap workers, we've got no taxes or low taxes, and as soon as these things begin to dry up, we're out of here. And that's one of the problems, because that's one of the tragedies in a community like this, when people finally get a halfway decent job, and they've been working there for a few years, like with Quaker. I knew some people who worked at Quaker for a very, very long time. And it's tragic to the impact it has on these people. To think that this company, they thought they were going to spend their career there and retire from there. And, it's just as devastating. And if you look at the thing, you have to wonder if it was better not to have the company come here and get these people invested and believe that they're going somewhere. They have a pathway in their life, and this is where they're going to stay for a while. And it's really, 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 sometimes you have to ponder whether, in fact, it's not even worth bringing them here unless they're going to stay,
I have to agree. It's amazing how time flies around here. It always gets to the end, but real quickly, I just want to say that it's our fault. It's not the politicians' fault. It's our fault. We are so desperate that we will accept any possible panacea that comes along. And there I go, using a big word again. But you have to accept what you have. Now that the recall is in place, we need to move forward, and we need to unite behind one candidate and make Fall River different.
Well, you're right. And on December 16th, let's those 32,000 people who didn't vote, get your lazy butts up and let's change this city, because the 17,000 of us who did vote will be back on December. Rain, shine, sleet, or snow. And if you need a ride, call us. We'll carry you there.
Thanks for watching. Have a great day.
Oh,